Hello readers, trying a new approach this week. Likely to be a one-off, but I thought I'd try a video blog. Is that a vlog? Not sure. Probably a one-off because already I miss writing. I get a deep joy in writing. But there's something very specific I wanted to talk to you about this week, and I felt that talking about it would be easier, perhaps, than writing about it. Not sure. We'll see what happens. I wanted to talk to you about a little bit about my journey in a bit more detail, a little bit about my why, and it's linked quite specifically to a particular event that is upcoming very shortly on Sunday, the 29th, which is the Edinburgh Marathon, which I'm running in. I feel the need to tell people I'm running in it as opposed to travelling to Edinburgh just to go to it. So yeah, I'm running in it. It's a couple of years late, but you know, stuff happened. So I wanted to talk about why I'm doing that, and hopefully sort of weave in some messaging around the whys, the hows, and what happens whens, which I hope will be applicable to other things that perhaps you're experiencing in your life, your career. So the why for me on a marathon is probably easier to say the why for me about running. So I've been running for a few years, and I use the word loosely. I feel the need to caveat that, use the word loosely. Running, jogging. I started it as a tool to get me out of poor mental health. I've talked a lot about knowing that exercise has huge benefits for so many things, not least mental health, health generally. Perhaps we one day can call it health. And I'm quite vocal about how difficult it is for somebody when they're in the grips of poor health, even though they know that this magical thing, exercise, will help them. It's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to physically get out, get up, and do something. So much energy is spent in getting from one day to the next, 1 hour to the next sometimes. I've also spoken about the fact that I'm incredibly fortunate and incredibly privileged to have been able to afford private help. So I spent many years seeing a therapist, and through that work I was able to get to a point where contemplating exercise, having this backdrop of I know it will be beneficial, became something that was possible. So I think that's my first caveat message is, you know, we know a lot of things are good for us. It doesn't always mean that we're ready to do those things or be those things. Timing is everything sometimes. But I reached a point also when it became possible where I said, okay, no more. I'd reached a point where I was no longer acceptable. And I've experienced that a few times in a number of different scenarios, where something is no longer enough. And that drive, that noise, that message becomes so loud that it drowns out things that hold us back. So fear being the main one, what holds us back from anything. So my why for the marathon is challenge, personal challenge, proving a point, possibly, to myself, probably, to the world, possibly. And it's a milestone for me, marker point, or in terms of and I say this to clients a lot, look over your shoulder, look how far you've come. There's definitely an element of that for me. It's a measurement of progress. Time, regardless, it's just, if you'd have said, I remember when I ran a 5K when I was, in my 20s, and it was the hard, I don't know how I did it. I genuinely don't know how I did it. It was awful. And so I think if you'd have told my 20-something self that at the age that I am, 44, that I would be running plus 26 miles, inconceivable. So something that seems impossible, not always the case. So if we have a why, if we have this important why of purpose, of direction, of mission, of orientation, whatever you want to call it, you have the why for doing something. In my case, it was, I have reached this point of enough, no more. You then get into the how. So how do I do this? How do I action this change or this new place that I want to be in? For me, that's a challenge. I've spoken about that. And certainly on the running front, there's an awful lot about goals. There's definitely a lot of planning. But more importantly, I think there's a lot of practice. And I talk about practice, it's probably my buzzword throughout all of my blogs, that change is hard. And to make change stick, it requires practice. And certainly it's true of running. And I get asked a few times, how do you practice something, particularly when it's difficult, uncomfortable? Sometimes there's a resentment around having to practice something. I certainly felt resentful about having to go outside and run in the pouring rain, snow, hail at times. But other practices of changing mindsets, changing behaviours, there can often be a resentment attached to that of why do I have to practice and how do I practice? And then we come back to the practicalities of routine. So I have practiced running because I have a plan and because I have a schedule and because I've made it routine. And there can be no excuses for not doing it. It's a case of, okay, today is a running day, today it is X number of miles, today we're doing it. And continuing to put yourself in that situation so that it happens. There's definitely a sense of determination. So on this, when we talk about determination, motivation, it always comes back to the why. So why am I doing it? Why is it important to me? Am I operating under the correct why? Is my why big enough? Is it important enough? Because if it is, and when it is, then the determination and therefore the motivation is there. And then, as with all things, accountability. I told a lot of people that this marathon was happening. I have a Just Giving page. And that makes it very difficult for me to say, oh, actually, I don't really feel up to it. I don't fancy it. I have put it out there in order that I have accountability from my friends, from my family, from my network. So I'm going to show up. I spoke about this in my last blog, or possibly the blog before, that if you have somebody waiting for you for something, so let's say it is exercise for you as well, and you arrange to meet somebody, not showing up is a very different ball game when somebody has an expectation and is relying on you. So accountability is a really vital part of sticking to practice and routine, in my experience. But what happens when we get knocked back? What happens when it doesn't quite work, when something gets in our way? So back to my marathon analogy, I got COVID slap bang at the start of when the training was supposed to start. And I wasn't particularly ill with it, but I was ill enough not to be able to have the energy to go and run. And at that time, the confidence took a massive knock. I'm not starting the plan on time. When will I be able to start the plan? What if I can't start the plan? I'm behind schedule. Will I be able to catch up? What happens if I can't catch up? And the little critics have a field day because obviously I catastrophise to the day that the race starts and I'm underprepared and I can't do it. So the message here is that we will experience knockbacks. Things will go wrong. That's life. But we are never starting from the beginning when that happens. We are starting from a point that is always further forward. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. And I think it's something that we often forget. We think, okay, I have to go again. I have to start again. And yeah, you have to stand up and choose to go again. But it's from a different point in the road from where you were 5 years ago, in my case, when I started to run and I could run for maybe 2 minutes before I had to stop. Not an exaggeration. So in the same way that physically we have muscle memory, we also have neural memory. Say that again. Neural memory. So we're not starting from this 0 point. And the more we practice, and I've spoken to so many people about building new neural pathways, this is where writing has an advantage to speaking. And it's been written about so many times in terms of how you absolutely can generate new neural pathways. And the more you use them through practice, the stronger they get. It's exactly the same as when you go to the gym and you build muscle in the gym or out on the pavement if you're me. So for me, this message around what is a marathon for me in the physical sense, what has been a marathon in the past for me in a mental sense, and for so many other things, for so many other people, problems that they're struggling with at work, big decisions that they want to make or need to make. My analogy around marathon is we can do hard things. And we can do things that were inconceivable to us at some stage in the past. And it comes down to, what are you prepared to commit to? And that's a mindset choice. I don't have a clever or pithy way to close this. I just wanted to run through my journey with running, my journey to the marathon. Yeah, and I think the overriding message, we can do hard things. I'll give you an update next week. It'll be in writing because I'll be tired. But yeah, good to talk to you. See you soon.